Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on this rainy night to our 2018 Roselle Park mayoral debate. I'm going to introduce myself, our panelists, and our candidates. We're going to go over some ground rules for the evening, and then we will get started with our questions. My name is Jenny Lichtenwallner. I've been a resident of Roselle Park for 13 years. I have a bachelor's from Douglas College and a master's from the University of South Florida. I'm the vice president of the Roselle Park Veterans Memorial Library Board of Trustees, and the 1998 Northern New Jersey debate champion. So, some relevant qualifications. So, Cory Booker and I had the same debate coach. What's with the feedback? Is that me? Okay, we're better. Okay. We have three panelists tonight: Saul Kirsten, Deborah Singleton, and Nia Travers, and each one of them will introduce themselves. Saul.
Okay. Hello, I'm Saul Kirsten. I was going to say I live at 150 Berwyn Street, which I do. Resident of the borough and high school graduate. Thank you. Father, husband. Thank you.
And good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah Singleton. I have been a resident of Roselle Park for nearly 40 years. My daughter is an alumni of Sherman School, the middle school, and the high school. Some of you may recall my husband, as I like to call him, the blind dude, and he was the gentleman that walked around with his guide dog style. And so I am a graduate of Rutgers University and Columbia University. I have clinical licenses as a social worker in New York and New Jersey, and I work as a clinical account executive at Anthem. And in my spare time, I work as a museum educator at the Thomas Cole Historic Site.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nia Travers. I recently graduated from Roselle Park High School in June of 2018. I'm currently in the Army National Guard.
To go over the format of the evening. The debate will have three panelists asking questions to our three candidates. The debate will consist of 12 primary questions. Hold it. Sorry, I'm learning the microphone. 3 questions were crafted by our panelists and will be asked to all of the candidates. Each question will allow for a 2-minute time limit with a 1-minute rebuttal for each candidate. One question has been crafted by each of our panelists to ask to an individual candidate. All questions will allow a 2-minute time limit for each candidate with a 1-minute time limit rebuttal for all 3 candidates. 3 questions will be accepted randomly from our audience members and asked by the panelists. Each question will also allow a 2-minute time limit with a 1-minute rebuttal for each candidate. There are cards available in the back of the room to write your questions on. Only questions written on the official cards will be accepted. 1 question will then be asked by each candidate to the other candidates. There will be a 2-minute time limit for each candidate being asked a question with a 1-minute rebuttal. Follow-up questions may be asked by our panelists. Okay, we reviewed the time limits. We reviewed the time limits in our previous discussion. For the audience questions, questions will be able to be submitted by our audience members. Special randomly numbered sheets will be provided to those in attendance this evening. No prepared questions will be accepted. Only questions on the numbered sheets will be allowed. These questions will be collected at the intermission to allow the opportunity for the moderator panel to discuss specifics of a submission with the person submitting any questions. Questions submitted during the debate will be asked by the panelists at the end of the debate, not by the audience members. Variants of the same question will be combined into one question. The panelists will be solely responsible for asking questions to the candidates. All other communications will go through the moderator. Timekeeping. A timer will be available to our candidates by our timekeeper with a marker for a 10-second wrap-up. here's the part that you guys need to listen to, audience conduct. The audience is asked to maintain decorum during the debate. Applause and other audience reaction shall be limited to the start and conclusion of the debate. Cell phones and all other electronic devices should be turned off or placed in silent mode. No disruptive behavior will be permitted. If the moderator finds you're being disruptive, you will be removed from the room. To introduce our three candidates this evening, and they will give their opening statements. Candidate Hokanson, you may begin.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. I appreciate your time and your energy, and hopefully by the end of the night, you will have learned more about me and my goals for our Roselle Park. I hope you re-elect me for the next 4 years to continue what we have started.
Candidate Fahori.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2018 Mayoral debate. My name is William Fahori, and I am the 3rd Ward Councilman and Council President. I'm a product of the Roselle Park school system, and I served in the Marine Corps infantry for 4 years, going on deployments to Afghanistan, Okinawa, Japan, and the Philippines. Being the mayor of Roselle Park is important to me. To understand why I want to be mayor, you have to first know why I wanted to be a Marine. 9/11, for me, like many others, changed my life forever. I remember being at Robert Gordon School outside for gym class when the teachers hurried us into the building, unsure of what was going on. My dad, shortly thereafter, picked me up from school, and I watched the Twin Towers fall on TV. It got worse when we found out that a member of the Fahori family was one of the victims of the attacks. The reason why I enlisted is because of 9/11. I felt like my family members before me that service to your country in our darkest hour is the ultimate public service. After my service with the Marine Corps was over, I came back to Roselle Park and knew my service to the community had only begun. I want to become mayor because I want to lead Roselle Park towards a brighter future. My experiences in the Marine Corps and on council will help me unite us towards our common goal. Thank you.
Candidate Signorello.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank my opponents for coming and taking part. I want to thank the folks who've set this up. I want to say how important it is tonight in an historic three-way race to see how all of us interact and all of us act under pressure and on our feet. My opening statement tonight is this. What we've been doing in Roselle Park isn't working. If it was, I wouldn't be running. We need leadership who can make the most of your hard-earned taxpayer dollars. We need leadership who knows how to get the best deals from the folks wanting to invest in Roselle Park. We need someone strong that will make sure we're getting our fair share from the county and state, and who will stand up for our local citizens. When you're watching tonight's debate, I want you to think not with your heart, but with your head. You need to pick somebody who's best suited to fix Roselle Park and build a town we're proud of. I grew up right here. I bought my first home here. I traveled the world getting things done for the private sector. I can and will do the same for Roselle Park. I'm confident by the end of the night, you'll know who's best equipped to put Roselle Park back on top, to make Roselle Park the shining star of Union County, and to show New Jersey and the whole country what we can be with a little common sense and a lot of passion. I look forward to tonight's debate.
We will now begin our panelist questions.
This question is to all of the candidates. There were several actual lockdowns at Roselle Park High School during the 2017-2018 school year. These were in reaction to threats made by students and non-students regarding bringing weapons into school. The most action that was taken by the high school was an added identification check ran by faculty members every morning. Will you speak directly to the students concerning their safety, and do you believe the previously mentioned steps are enough to provide a secure public school?
Okay. Yes, I am aware of the lockdowns at the high school. I am a former police commissioner. I am a former police officer. I am the police commissioner. I am in constant contact with the chief of police. And as far as the training goes and the procedures for those lockdowns, I think that we are on top notch with them. The working relationship that we have between the police department, the students, and the Board of Education is outstanding. Some of the items that are done in the training, I won't get into because that's just giving out this, security that I don't want to do. But as far as the police department goes, they are on top of it. They are constantly monitoring, both through the school, Facebook, and all social medias, and also word of mouth. But yes, so I would.
What our borough and what the school board of education does regarding our lockdowns in school is, it is good. The procedures for the lockdown, what the police presence is, what their response is good. However, despite this, police, the board of education, parents, teachers, everyone needs to not get complacent, and they always have to be vigilant, because the minute that we take our guard down, a park town or a new town, it will become Roselle Park. And take it from when I was in the Marine Corps to when I do now. When you get complacent, bad stuff happens. So I do caution everyone in this room, police department, the school board of education, teachers, parents, if you see something, say something, because it might save someone's life. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the Board of Ed and Roselle Park Police Department do a fantastic job. I think there's probably always steps that we can take a little bit further. I think as part of being vigilant, we need to adhere to best practices statewide. I think it makes sense to, in lieu of recent activities, make sure we do a review to make sure we're in compliance for all those statewide best practices. I'm not as familiar with the RPPD side, but I know that on the RPFD side, there's a list of guidance that we can make sure we're taking all the boxes there. But personally, knowing folks in the high school and Roselle Park Middle School, I'm checked thoroughly, and I've known a lot of these folks my entire life. So I think the Board of Ed has garnered praise from the Roselle Park Police Department, and rightfully so, because I think the Board of Ed is completely compliant with all the Roselle Park Police Department suggestions. And I think the Roselle Park Police Department does a thorough job in town with most activities. So.
Our panelist doesn't have any follow-up. Would any of the candidates like to offer a rebuttal to anything offered by the other candidates?
No?
Just to follow up on one thing, it does not matter if you've known them for 50 years or 5 years, you still have to remain vigilant, because you don't know what that person is going through. You don't know what they have experienced. I've seen it in the Marine Corps with my Marine buddies taking their own lives, with even some veterans going up and going to veteran affairs and shooting up veteran affairs. It's the same thing. It pertains to the same as schools. No matter how long or how you've known this person or anything like that, you always have to take every absolute necessary precaution to make sure that our children are safe.
Yeah, I think Councilman Vahori is perhaps just a bit misunderstanding what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the folks that work at RPHS and RP Middle School have known me for years, and they still put me through the ringer to make sure that I'm on the list. I have approval to be in there. So my point was, they have known me since I was a little kid, and they still provide thorough checks. So I'm commending the BOE on what they do. But I agree, absolutely. Yep.
All right. And so for each of the candidates, I listened very carefully to the interviews, took pretty good notes, and there seemed to be a common thread, and I did hear a sentiment that the law is the law when it comes to possession of marijuana. However, that law is changing, and the New Jersey State Senate expects to hold a vote on marijuana legalization by the end of this month. Once approved, New Jersey residents would be able to legally possess small amounts of marijuana, and on the commercial side, entrepreneurs can apply for a license and seek approval from a town to set up a business. So things will definitely be very different this time next year. I have a simple question for each of you regarding a marijuana dispensary. And so my expectation for each of you is that you will initially answer with a yes or a no answer. And once you do provide me with that straightforward yes or no, you can then use the rest of your response time to wow me and the other residents here of Roselle Park with your knowledge of criminal expungements, what towns have already set up bans to have a marijuana dispensary in their area, if specific groups such as veterans and women will be given a priority to establish a marijuana business, whether you have ever visited a dispensary for research purposes, and how much home prices have increased in towns that have a marijuana dispensary. So my straightforward question to you is, will you support or will you ban a marijuana dispensary in Roselle Park?
Yes. Oh,
Now Will goes.
Oh, I go now?
I'm sorry. I thought it was,
Oh,
I apologize.
that's what I thought too. So the simple question is yes, I would support there being a marijuana dispensary in Roselle Park. However, the necessary restrictions and restraints have to be put in place by the state before we even talk about anything going forward. I know that Linden is one town, one city that has started looking into putting in marijuana dispensaries. These regulations by the state have to be done by the state first before we even talk about a dispensary. Decriminalization is definitely something that we need to do of marijuana because it is overcrowding our prisons. It needs to be regulated like maybe how we regulate alcohol. You need to know how or when someone is high. Right now, we do not have that kind of test for automobilists right at the scene. So we need to, as not just as Roselle Park, but as a state, get the regulations down pat before we even consider the dispensary.
Yes, is the short answer. The long answer is I think Mr. Fahori and I are quite aligned, and I would not want Roselle Park to be an early adopter. Although I don't have any children myself, I would like to see how it works in other towns and take it from there. I think one thing that we don't do enough of in Roselle Park is take lessons learned and best practices from other towns. So in strong guidance and connection with the RPPD, I would like to make sure that there's a smooth transition to legalization were that day to come. And when it comes to things like expungement, I'm pro expungement when there's not in conjunction with violent crime. Speaking with the county sheriff, and I think this is of the utmost importance that folks with minor records, expungement is appropriate. But if there's something serious like criminal violent records, then that's not appropriate in the slightest bit, and we would like those people to stay in the criminal justice system. As far as priority goes, I think we live in a free market, and I think the free market should decide who and when can open a dispensary. I don't think it's up to the government to pick and choose who should have priority. And with regards to home prices, I think that there's mixed data when it comes to states and home prices when it comes to legalization of marijuana. Denver's seen a huge boom, but the one thing that I would like to see statewide, which I think we need and hurts all of our taxes, is school revenue. From a state perspective, our municipal taxes are sky high because the state's historically underfunded schools and municipalities have had to pick up the slack. I would love to see some of that revenue coming from legalized marijuana coming back to Roselle Park to make sure we're funding schools appropriately and lessening the burden on Roselle Park taxpayers, which I know you guys are hurting because I'm hurting on those taxes too. So those are my views.
Yes. Yes, I would, but the problem that we're going to have here in Roselle Park is reading the standards to open up a marijuana dispensary. There has to be 1,000 feet away from schools, churches, and so forth and so on, and Roselle Park is a very small town. So wherever it's going to be, it may be a residential area because the requirements are not going to be able to fit the need to open up a store like we can't put in downtown Chester Street. okay? As far as testing, I was a former police officer. There is a test to test motorists at the scene, and the officers do it. They have to go through extensive training. It's with the eyes, so that means we would have to spend more money to give all the police officers that ability to, to test. Also, a reminder that, again, it's against federal law, so we have to, work around that. And the other problem that we have is with Denver and all these other places that have it is the problem with the depositing of the money, because it's illegal. So we're going to have problems.
And so my response to the three of you is that, number one, I have been to Denver for business quite a few times, and so I've actually visited dispensaries and see how they're situated. I've done my research purposes. But what I would like to say is that my friends who are in the Denver area have seen home prices boom, because those dispensaries are putting the money back into the community, because they cannot put it into a bank. So that's one idea. The other thing that I would like to mention as well is that I believe that it will be mandated that veterans and women must be at least, they must be 25% of the owners of, I don't know the correct way to say it, but they do need to be given priority, and so that will be 25% of the ownership. So I would just like to put that out there.
If any of you gentlemen have a rebuttal to any of the other candidates' statements, you have 1 minute.
No.
No, ma'am.
No, I just would like to piggyback on the one topic of home prices, which I think is totally valid, and I mentioned Denver. I really like, I listened to Councilman Fahori's interview, and I think it's really important that we think about the branding of Roselle Park, who we want to be as a town, what we want to be known for. And I do think we want to be careful not to all of a sudden be known for, Weed Town, New Jersey, to be frank. I think we stand for much more than just potential the legalization of marijuana. So I do think I would like to be hypersensitive to what we are projecting as the brand Roselle Park. So I would just like to add that, but I think it's totally valid, the home price comment in Denver, so.
Candidates. Currently, there are numerous approved and upcoming development projects throughout the borough. Other than those that have been approved or are in the works, and excluding Sullivan, Hunter, and the Ryan properties, which area listed in the most recent master plan would you focus on if elected in the borough, and what would you want there? It's understood that public and council input would be a determining factor, but as the head of the borough, what specifically would you want there, and what area? Thank you.
I go first this time, right? Yep. Specifically, I think the most important developments, potential developments going on in Roselle Park are that of and around the train station. I talk about this in my interview. I talk about this door-to-door. Successful towns build around transit and high traffic areas, and it makes logical sense. If you're building a cafe, you're going to get more foot traffic if you have a cafe where people walk to and from NJ Transit. So I think the most viable, sustainable developments we can do are around the train station and in conjunction with the train station and in that flow. I think we've done a woeful job of focusing on this. I think it's difficult to develop residential areas on Westfield Avenue because, to be frank with you, I think it's difficult to have successful businesses on a two-lane highway. I think it's difficult to have the sales pitch living on a two-lane highway. Westfield Avenue, we need to completely rethink. I think it's a safety hazard. I think it's very dangerous. We've had deaths this year on it. And I think, to be frank with you, thinking about Westfield Avenue as our downtown makes very little logical sense. There will always be not in my backyard naysayers to having development around the train station because it's in a residential area. But I think when you present the cost business case of how much potential home values can go up when we have a beautified train station, we have a buzzing downtown 2.0, if you will, around the train station. I think the benefits far outweigh any potential costs there. And I think that is something, if elected mayor, I will be hyper focused on, because that area just hasn't seen a lot of love today. And you just need to take the NJ Transit to New York to notice that we need to do better over there.
My area is an area that's been an eyesore for over 17 years, and that's Hawthorne Street, the old Cabrinco Labs. It goes to show that when a property sits there for 17 years and deteriorates, doesn't speak well of us and the borough, that other people will want to come in and build in other areas. So I'm happy to sit back and say that after 17 years, that project is now in the process of being done to show other people, other developers in the area, that we are willing to take on, you know, the big problems, the problems that have been sitting there as an eyesore for over 17 years.
The properties around the train station for redevelopment are the #1 priority. Now, I do disagree with Mr. Signorello. I can only speak for the 2 years that I've been on council, and on the 2 years on council, we have done incredible things to put the groundwork to actually develop. We have hired an economic development director that professionalizes economic development in Roselle Park. We are in the process of applying for Transit Village to get more access to grant monies to improve our downtown, to improve our sidewalks in the downtown. We are looking into expanding and improving our downtown by extending our zoning to the train station from our current downtown. These three things are the most important things that we have done in Roselle Park in the last 20 years, because we have never had an economic development director. We have never had a professional in charge of our development. And with her, Beth Ann McDonald, she is going to put us in the right direction. She comes from Somerville, Maplewood, two towns that were Roselle Park when she began. And when she left, she made them these incredible towns that people want to come to and things that they want to emulate. And Roselle Park, we will be the town to emulate, just like Somerville, just like Maplewood. Thank you.
I do. Thank you, gentlemen. But my question had actually excluded the Ryan property and ones that have already been approved, and Hawthorne has been approved. So just to reiterate, my question is, out of the remaining areas that the master plan stated were needed to be addressed, which would you pick next?
Oh,
Not which would you pick next? What would you want there?
Can I, since we have time, can we allow the candidates to start over and answer the question again?
Sure.
And begin the question period? So you have 2 minutes to answer the question again, as the question was asked. So Mr. Signorello would go first.
Okay. Okay, so the Ryan property is excluded.
Right, I said, other than those, I guess we'll start the time. I'll rephrase, I'll restart the question. Currently, there are numerous approved and upcoming development projects throughout the borough. Other than those, and excluding Sullivan, Hunter, and the Ryan properties,
Oh, excluding Hunter.
Right.
Okay.
which area listed in the most recent master plan would you focus on to develop in the borough, and what would you want to develop there? It is understood that public and council input would be a determining factor, but as the head of the borough, what specifically would you want to focus on next? Where and why?
Okay. Well, I'll do a quick win then, since I think most of the controversial ones, if you will, are out of the topic here. I think the most recent storage unit was rejected actually because of the master plan. I think the Municipal Land Use Board had said that it was not in line with our master plan of walkability. And I think Westfield Avenue should be our industrial area. I think the storage unit was a good-looking facility that brought economic income and revenue without any kids to town. And I would happily restart those talks right quick and in a hurry. So.
As you see, my #1, after understanding that would be better, is right down the street is the Park Theater. To get that up and running. The fact that was a main focal point years ago when I was growing up. It's in total disrepair right now. Matter of fact, it's in unsafe condition. But I would love to have the Park Theater come back because we are booming the last 3 or 4 years with the arts. I was approached about 2 years ago from a company from New York. They want to do both live entertainment and art shows and performances and also have the movies. But apparently the woman kind of like rejected that idea. So I would love to see the Park Theater come back to some type of arts, movies, arts, performances. So that would be my number one.
Just to clarify the question, it's the property is not in the master plan.
No, so there was a recent master plan, and in that master plan, there were 11 properties, and we are excluding Sullivan, Hunter, and Ryan, and things like Hawthorne and all the others. What would be next?
Okay. Next would definitely be our movie theater. I would agree with Mayor Hokanson. Growing up, the movie theater was definitely somewhere where the young children and young adults could go to watch a movie, to hang out. Now we do not have that, and we haven't had it for a while. And to disagree with some of my opponents, Westfield Ave is not an industrial zone, and it can be walkable. We can have lively businesses and development. Why would someone coming from another town like Cranford or Westfield on our west side want to drive all the way into our downtown when they have to drive so far and go through an industrial zone? That does not make for outside people to come in and enjoy our business. So I would disagree on that. And they would want to come to the movie theater too, because that property is in complete disarray, and as Mayor Hokanson said, it is a safety hazard currently. So yes, Park Movie Theater and Westwood Ave would be the next places to attack.
No, oh, we don't get follow-up on this one?
You get a 1 minute.
Can I get a quick one? Oh, sorry. Please. First one of the night.
Each of the candidates has a 1-minute rebuttal. Mr. Signorello, you can go first.
Yeah, so 2 quick things on that. I think the movie theater, there's been no action there because nothing's happened on Sullivan Chevrolet. Nobody's going to move on the movie theater because next across the street is an eyesore. The lack of development on the movie theater is because we can't get Sullivan Chevrolet right. And to be frank with you, from what I've seen from mayor and council, I'm not sure we're going to solve this anytime soon. I hope I'm wrong. But that's why the movie theater is not open. And if they can't understand that, then they haven't been talking to the right people. And the issue with Westfield Avenue and the difference between us and Garwood and Cranford is that's a 1-lane street. It is better for business that you need to slowly drive through Cranford and Garwood, not speed through it at 45 miles an hour like you do here in Roselle Park. It's a business killer. Full stop. Thank you.
No.
So the reason why the movie theater has not been, I guess for lack of better words, transformed in the last 17 years is because the owner of the property is asking for too much money and there are way too many repairs. The roof is collapsed inside. As Mayor Hokanson and I both said, it's not structurally safe. And we can petition to the Department of Transportation to lower the speed limit on Westwood Avenue to where it is 25 miles an hour, and we can get the necessary improvements from the state through our Transit Village application that will allow us to slow down the cars and make it more pedestrian safe for us to get across Westwood Avenue and enjoy the other side of Westwood Avenue.
We're going to move on to the second segment of our debate, where our panelists will ask one panelist will ask one question to one candidate, specifically directed towards that candidate. The candidate will have 2 minutes to reply. The other 2 candidates will have a 1-minute rebuttal, and then the original candidate will have 1 minute to reply to the rebuttals. The first question will be to candidate Fahori.
No.
I apologize, my sheet is wrong. The first candidate will be candidate Hokinson.
My question to candidate Hokinson is, Roselle Park will be introducing new apartment buildings along with new business opportunities. It is my understanding that our town's new economic director, Mrs. McDonald, wants to speak to the people about their vision for Roselle Park.
I'm sorry, to speak, I didn't get the, Ms. McDonald was what?
It is my understanding that our town's new economic director wants to speak to the people about their vision for Roselle Park. Will you and when will you, along with Ms. McDonald, interact personally with the youth of Roselle Park, since most of the students of Roselle Park leave town for better downtown areas to explore?
Okay, first of all, yes, there are the Sullivan property, we'll just go with that. There is redevelopment. As of right now, okay, we just settled the redevelopment agreement. We haven't had any plans, technically we did, but there's no official plans that have actually come forward to mayor and council and/or the municipal land use board. Once that happens, okay, we will be having public meetings both at mayor and council and at the municipal land use board, okay? Beth is in the process of talking with the appointed developer as we speak now to see what, tentatively it's apartments in 6 commercial establishments. Once we start to get to know what's going on, then of course, everybody in this audience will, be knowing what's going to happen, because we will allow them to come here and give their input before anything is finally approved by the municipal land use board or mayor and council.
All right, candidate Fahori, if you have a rebuttal to that.
Yes, so Beth Ann McDonald, we just hired her this year, and there are 3 main things that she's going to be doing for our town. Number 1, she will be the voice for our business community. Number 2, she will be attracting new businesses, people, and development into Roselle Park. And number 3, and most importantly, and this is where her vision plan for you all are, is she is going to brand Roselle Park. Branding like you would brand Dove soap. To get people to come into Roselle Park and shop here, to live here, and to settle down here. This objective is not going to take her a couple of weeks or even days. It's going to be a long process. And before we can run, we have to walk, and before we walk, we have to crawl. Crawl. Thank you.
Candidate Signorello.
So I think citizens are being introduced way too late in the game with the Sullivan Chevrolet property. I know it's an eyesore that has been around for 9 years. Oh, by the way, my opponents have been on council and watched this become an eyesore. The fact of the matter is the redevelopment plan has already set the wide parameters for that. So I think the citizens will have actually, sadly, very little say at the end of the day. And I think the development there is something I'm strongly against, giving tax abatement for more apartments that, quite frankly, we just don't need more apartments in Roselle Park. And, at this point, Councilman Fahori, I don't know who's running. Is it you or Beth Ann? Because it's the only thing that I've heard throughout the interviews and throughout tonight, so.
Okay, first of all, yes, I can only speak for myself because Mr. Fahori was not on council as long as I have. But just to let you know, there was a plan for the Sullivan property by the original owner.
I know.
He's the one that came to me and mayor and council and said, pull it. We don't want it. And mayor and council requested his wish, and we did pull it.
Heard otherwise.
The owner came back to me.
He talks, you don't.
The owner came back to me and says, I'll have a plan within 6 months to blow your socks off. A year later, no plan came forward. So, yes, there was a plan. It was supposed to have been done 4 years ago. But when the owner tells you to pull the project because he wants to do something better, and guess what? He never did.
Our second question is to candidate Fahori.
Yes, candidate Fahori. So in the candidate interviews, Mr. Signorello stated that Roselle Park often puts the cart before the horse. And as I alluded to earlier, I took really good notes. He cited an example of the newly hired Economic Development Coordinator. Mr. Signorello expressed his opinion that this position may be needed in 4 years, but it's not needed now. Instead, Mr. Signorello talked about hiring a town administrator that could make sure that things are getting done. In your interview, you, and even this evening, you're a huge fan of the Economic Development Coordinator position, believing that she will be one of the forces to guide our town forward so that Roselle Park has branding. So my question to you is the following. Is it better to spend our tax dollars on a town administrator that's been proposed by Mr. Signorello or an Economic Development Coordinator?
It is better for us to spend our tax dollars on an economic development director. For one reason, our borough clerk currently does all of the jobs right now that a town administrator would do. So why would we need to make an added expense to the borough? Number two, Beth Ann McDonald, she comes from Somerville, from Maplewood, as have I stated. And for the 2 years that I've been on council, I have not been on council long, since 2017. I disagree with his notion that we put the cart before the horse. It took us, the redevelopment plan at Sullivan, it took 15 months to approve because we vetted out the process. We took our time and made sure everything was right. And if that's putting the cart before the horse, then I don't know, it has to be the correct way. It has to be the right way. If we want to speed up the process, then sometimes we get caught up in it. And also, too, with professionalizing economic development, putting it into the hands of politicians is not good. We have never, ever had an economic development director or a Department of Economic Development. This is brand new territory for our borough, and it is exciting new territory because of what the things that she has done in Somerville and in Maplewood that she can bring to Roselle Park. And I encourage everyone today, if you have this weekend or in the near future, go to Somerville and see Somerville, or go into her office upstairs and ask her to show you pictures of what Somerville was and what it is today. 10 years ago, Somerville was in our position, and now, 10 years later, Somerville is a transit village, and Somerville is the shining light of Somerset County.
Mr. Signorello?
I'm paying close to 10 grand in taxes. I'm sure a lot of you are paying close, if not high rent. For that money, does Roselle Park feel like a well-run town to you? When you walk down Chestnut Street, does it feel like you're getting your money's worth? We need to go back to getting to basics and making sure we're getting the basics right. A town clerk should not be doing these duties. We need a town administrator to professionalize getting tax bills out on time, making sure the DPW is functioning properly. You know, you have only been on council for 2 years, but the third ward, which was run by a Republican beforehand, is in disarray completely. And a town administrator or business administrator would professionalize town services and make sure things are getting done right. And the last point on having an economic developer, I've talked to businesses in town. We've got 2 open storefronts. I don't know where new businesses are going to go. We need to bring in new commercial space.
Mr. Hawkinson? Our third panelist question will be to candidate Hawkinson.
Thank you. Thank you. No, Signorello, right?
You get
Thank you. Candidate Signorello, you had a campaign shirt that read "Fix Roselle Park." With the municipal government that has for the last decade improved from a A2 rating to a AA3 rating through Moody's bond rating, which is now a high quality and very low credit risk, an average increase of less than $100 for the municipal portion of property taxes, about $87.60. Pre-agenda and YouTube airing of meetings which both address transparency, a municipal budget process that has been open to the public for decades, a necessary yet politically unpopular townwide reval, the return of multiple bulk pickups, a Memorial Day parade, holiday events, an elected official handbook to help mayor and council, development, although some would say too much development, but development, and services that more and more ask for input from residents. What needs to be fixed?
Yeah, I mean, structurally, our tax base, I would say we have, as a ratio, the third highest taxes in Union County. I think they're obscene. I would say the downtown needs to be fixed. The downtown has seen wildly better days. So to say that, we're on the upswing there, I would disagree. And, I've looked at the budget. I don't think it's anything to thump our chest about to say that we've had the lowest increase in umpteen years or whatever. The fact of the matter is Garwood had a flat budget this year. I've looked at the numbers. We could have had a flat budget if we looked hard enough. And we need to stabilize our taxes because, look, cutting municipal taxes is a hard thing, and the municipality is a small portion of, 30% of your net tax bill. But to say we're doing our best to rein in taxes or work with the BOE to also rein in taxes from a BOE perspective, that's something that I was talking to a voter the other day who used to be on council. That's something they used to do back in the day is work hand in hand with the Board of Education. We're wildly out of sync with the Board of Education when it comes to things like, school planning, sharing services. I think there's tons to fix here, and right pocket isn't talking to left pocket, and look, at the end of the day, this does not feel like a well-run town, and I think that there are hardcore facts, and a couple of them I stated tonight to back that up.
1 minute rebuttal. Just for correction, sir, we are the 10th highest in Union County, not the 3rd, okay, 10th or 11th. We do shared services with the Board of Education, our tree truck, our heavy equipment, and whatever else we can do for them. Yes, so we do shared service with the Board of Education, and we are the 10th or the 11th, and out of the 21 municipalities as far as the tax rates go in Union County.
So here's my question, and it's a pretty simple one. I don't understand why one of the candidates keeps attacking what mayor and council is doing. Why are you not presenting concrete plans as opposed to fluff? Because that's what it is. And I guess the CFO is not doing their job by getting the tax bills out. And also to your point about the Board of Education, when we sat down with the Board of Education, the Finance Committee sat down with them this year and we discussed shared services, and they did not want to do anything with us with shared services. And when we keep repeatedly asking to do these shared services, they do not get back to us. So if you would like to ask why the Board of Ed is doing that, maybe you can find someone who who's on Board of Education you can ask.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt to talk a little more to the Board of Education. I agree. I think that, oh,
Bang.
Yes.
yeah.
Mr. Signorelli, you have 1 minute to reply.
Yeah, a little more.
Wait, I didn't get a minute to rebut after my question. Huh? No one said that I did, though. And no one asked me.
So I'm not going to be able to rebut to the rebuttal? Yes. All right.
I don't think Mayor Hoganson rebutted either.
Mayor Hoganson was given the option.
I did.
Yeah, and he did.
I gave the.
Oh, I didn't.
I corrected him on the tax rate, and I corrected him about the school and the borough doing shared service. Is this legal, the way we're doing it? Saul?
She's the moderator. Ask her.
I
not me.
I don't want to.
It's Roselle Park legal. Mr. Signorello will have a minute to rebut, and then we can go back to question 2, and Mr. Fahora, you will have 1 minute to reply if you would like. So Mr. Signorello has 1 minute to reply to the other 2 candidates to his original question.
Look, with the way you guys are pumping units into Roselle Park, I don't think it would hurt to have a little bit of closer relationships to the Board of Ed. So, if I've got a direct line to somebody on the Board of Ed, I think it's advantageous to the municipality, to be frank with you. And more than that, look, we can go back and forth on numbers all day, and I know, Carl, you haven't been knocking door to door in a while, but there's plenty of people moving out or planning to move out because they can't afford it anymore. So, maybe we're looking at the wrong rankings. Maybe I'm looking at older rankings, but you're detached from reality if you think it's affordable to live in Roselle Park. And even if I'm wrong on my numbers, the fact of the matter is people don't feel like they're getting their money's worth here, and I think there's a good, strong reason why.
No.
Okay, all right, no problem.
We have a follow-up question from the panelist.
Thank you. Candidate Signorello, at a previous question, you had said, are residents getting their money's worth? And I gave examples of things that people actually like. They're actually called the golden cows, bulk pickups, Memorial Day parade, holiday events. So you just addressed taxes as a specific, as something that needed to be fixed. But I've given the figure. And then you stated also that you reviewed the budget and you would actually cut. Can you specifically, since you brought that up, can you specifically say what you would have cut in the 2018 budget? And what other thing, other than taxes, need to be fixed in Roselle Park? And downtown, those were the two things you said.
Yeah, I mean, downtown, the taxes, I would say we need to name a DPW superintendent. I think there are some basic things that need to be fixed. Specific cuts, I've said, more than enough times that I think shared service is the way to go. And I think had we gone earlier, deeper with shared services, I don't think that, 200K is there in shared services. I mean, if you think about the fact of maybe sharing a DPW superintendent, that's half of a DPW superintendent's salary, plus benefits.
Each of the other candidates will have 1 minute to reply to that.
If I may, we did already look into shared services with a superintendent from the borough of Kenilworth, and that did not come about. We also looked at Garwood and other towns. That did not come about. We've also tried to do shared services with a new building with Cranford. They didn't even return our calls. So this council has been actively looking to go out and do shared services.
To add to that, not only Kenilworth or Cranford, but also Clark, Garwood, Fanwood, and Board of Education, that we have looked to share services, including the Department of Public Works Superintendent. The fact of the matter is, because I am on the Municipal Services Committee, it has taken us all year to find a superintendent, and we are very close to hiring a new DPW superintendent. Not because we're dragging our feet or taking our time, it's because there is a lack of people who are interviewing. The first time we only had 3 people interview, and then the second time maybe 9. And there are other circumstances that were at play to where we did not want to rush this hire, because every department head hire is very important and it drives each individual department, and we want the right people leading Roselle Park on a professional side.
Okay, that concludes the first half of our debate. If you still have questions to hand in, we have about another 90 seconds to hand in questions to Kathy, who is sitting in the back. Thank you all for your participation. We're going to take a quick break for the panelists to determine the second half of the session. Okay, welcome back, everybody, to the second half of our 2018 Roselle Park mayoral candidate debate. For the third part of our debate, our candidates will be answering questions submitted by you, the audience. The moderators and panelists went through the questions, split them up by topic, and put the rest in a bag to decide, pick them out of a hat, literally, to see which questions would be asked of our candidates. So our candidates will answer the questions in the same order that they answered the first round of questions. Our panelists will ask the questions in the same order. We will have the difference in this round is that each candidate will have a full 2-minute response time, and then each one will have a full 1-minute rebuttal to the other candidates' responses. So Nia will ask the first question, and we're ready.
First question is, what is your position on Roselle Park's journey to achieve bronze certification, and how would you specifically support the Green Team efforts to achieve bronze certification under Sustainable Jersey?
Bonds?
Bronze.
Bronze certification.
Oh, okay. We are in the process of doing that right now. It's a progress that Councilman Fahori started, and the council is working on it right now, and I support it wholeheartedly. and it's going to be a good thing for the borough, so I totally support it.
So yes, so Mayor Hoganson alluded to, we started the Sustainable Jersey Green Team this year. I'm the liaison to council, and Michelle Lamonto is the person in charge of the Green Team, and we have been working tirelessly to become bronze certified. Now, for those who don't know, Sustainable Jersey is a nonprofit organization that helps municipalities across the state become more environmentally friendly, and amongst other things. The benefits for Roselle Park, it grants us more access to grant monies, and the biggest issue I see forward, not just for Roselle Park, but not for the state, but for the country, is that we need to be environmentally aware of what is going on with our globe, and we need to cut those kind of environmental costs as much as possible. And this is a first step, becoming bronze certified. There are silver certification and gold certification, and it's very exciting, and I'm very happy to have spearheaded that on council.
Yeah, I'd like to, it's off.
Top.
I'd like to echo Councilman Fahori's thoughts. I think, from an altruistic perspective, obviously we need to do right for the environment. But from a Roselle Park interest perspective, it puts us in better position to get grant money. I think, obviously, supporting the Green Team is priority to me. I think specifically, one of the key ways to get Green Team certification is electric car chargers. So if we can get electric car chargers for the town at little to no cost to the town, I think that's a great idea and something that differentiates us from other towns in the area. The one thing that I'm really, really frustrated about is Sustainable New Jersey's been around for 9 years, and we're just waking up to this now. I think that other towns have been better at getting grant money for us because they've been working for this for, since the inception. So I really scratch my head for folks who have been on council and for parties that have been in charge that, we're just waking up all of a sudden to the Green Team. And but I'm a supporter. I have concrete ideas, and I'm a supporter of the Green Team, and I'm 100% for it.
Each candidate has a 1-minute rebuttal to the other candidates' responses.
I'm good.
So, in response, I can only speak of my 2 years on council. The previous 7 years I can't speak of, but the reason why we have Sustainable Jersey and we know about the Green Team is because of our coordinator, Michelle Lamonto, and we put her in charge last year, not because of politics, but because she knows what she's doing and she does everything right. Clean Communities is what we put her into, and then it evolved into Sustainable Jersey, the Green Team this year, and she's doing a fantastic job for our borough, and I'm very happy that was one of the first things I did on council was get Michelle Lamonto on board.
Yes.
There's no further rebuttal, or? Okay. Yeah, I would just say I think it's great that Michelle stepped up. I think it's fantastic. Private citizen engagement drives the municipality. Councilmen and women and the mayor can only do so much. So, folks like Michelle Lamonto stepping up is fantastic. I just think it's a head scratcher that, we have one gentleman up here representing a party who's been in charge of the town since Green Team's inception, and we have another person on here who was a councilman and was a mayor, and it took Michelle Lamonto pushing to get this done. I don't understand why the Republican Party or Carl Hoganson in his tenure didn't try to push for this earlier, is my only question, because we would be in better position for that ever so important grant monies today had we gone after it earlier.
We have our second question from Deborah, and Mr. Fahori will answer first.
Thank you. Although Locust Street is considered a county road, which of course also means that the county has responsibility for it. Your residents are often given parking tickets. Where is the town's protection of us? Has paid permit parking ever been thought of? Otherwise, we don't feel like we are a part of Roselle Park.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
This is from a resident on Locust Street. Although Locust Street is considered a county road, your residents are often given parking tickets. Where is the town's protection of us? Has paid permit parking ever been thought of? Otherwise, we don't feel like we are a part of Roselle Park.
I'm a little confused on the question. Does this pertain to just Locust Street or the entire borough?
This is a resident of Locust Street, so this is their concern.
But we're considering this as an overall question about parking in the borough.
Okay. So parking has always been an issue in Roselle Park, and it will continue to be an issue in Roselle Park because of population growth within not only within the United States, New Jersey, and Roselle Park. So how to tackle this is some of the things that we have been doing in Roselle Park. Like this year, council just approved a agreement with TimPat, the people who own the Rhine property, to get an additional 56 parking spaces for commuters, because we have been listening to commuters' concerns, especially in Roselle Park, that they can't park at our train station. So this is one step to mitigate that parking. Onto the fact of permit parking on streets, it's a game of whack-a-mole, essentially, because as people keep getting permit parking on their streets, people want it on their streets because they don't want overflow from the apartments, and this is definitely going to be a concern for whoever becomes mayor for their next 4 years.
Yeah, I commend mayor and council actually on this one. I think they've been proactive about some of the parking issues. I think the reality is we're tightly packed here in Roselle Park. I see it particularly in dense areas like Locust Street and Westfield Avenue. Parking is a problem. I think the Ryan property, leveraging that was a good call. I do think we need to get creative and some additional solutions. I've spoke with the CEO of Boxcar. For those of you who don't know Boxcar, it's a solution to basically, it's like Airbnb for your driveway. So you can rent out your driveway. And I think that's one thing that we should explore, is being able to allow them back in. I think that would alleviate some of the issues. But I think we just need to encourage also less drivers and more walking. We have a very walkable town, and I think the encouragement of getting people out of their car and walking downtown is not just good for people's, not just good for the parking, but also good for our businesses and, probably good for our health. So I know it's a tough nut to crack, and I think we would need to, were I mayor, do a full review of the parking situation in Roselle Park, because it's something that needs to be solved. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, as a former police officer in Roselle Park for 28 years, Locust Street is a county road, and the enforceable hours are from 7 to 9 in the morning and in the afternoon, and that is to make the traffic flow to get out of town, okay? As far as the parking goes, yes, we just signed a deal with TimPat to allow 58 cars, 3 handicapped, 59, so to park there, and it's only Roselle Park residents only, okay? The full parking review, we are doing that right now. I personally went out, when this first started out, going around to all the different areas. We have permit parking still on 300 block of Spruce Street, which we don't need anymore. There's, on East Lincoln Avenue, there's 2 different time frames to park, for the commuters that were there. The directive did go out to the police department to give us the areas that need it, especially around the train station, because that still is, the hub. But we are totally going through the permit parking throughout the entire borough. It's going to take time because we have to listen to the apartment dwellers that, have the 2 and 3 cars in, the one apartment, and we also have to look at the homeowners, in their area, because, they're paying taxes, but everybody is. So we are totally going through that as we speak right now.
Each candidate has a 1-minute rebuttal to the other candidate's responses.
Yes, I do agree with Mayor Hokinson. Since I've been on council, we have been reviewing all of the parking ordinances in our borough. It is definitely necessary. It is a very long process because there are a lot of inconsistencies with our parking ordinances. And also to Mr. Signorello's comment about making Roselle Park more walkable, we have done that on council this year, implementing our complete streets policy. And what that does, it makes our town not only safe for drivers, but also safe for bicyclists and walkers. So before we make comments about having Roselle Park more walkable, we have to put plans in place to make sure that our residents are safe when they're walking from the train station to their home or from their business to their home. And it's not a catch-all, but it's definitely a very, very good start.
Yeah, I mean, obviously streets need to be safe before they're walked on. I don't disagree with Councilman Vavorian. Again, I think this is something that, mayor and council have been moving in the right direction on. But, quite frankly, as I said with Sustainable New Jersey, complete streets has been around forever too. And it's something that only we've woken up to in the last 2 years. Again, I'm sitting next to somebody who's sat as councilman and somebody who's currently mayor and somebody whose party's been leading this town, for most of my life. And I haven't seen much action on complete streets until recently. So I'm glad it's happening now. But, again, I guess better late than never.
We have our third question coming from Saul, and Mr. Signorello will be the first one to answer.
Just by way of full disclosure, I am a member of the Diversity Committee, and this is partly a diversity question, but I did not frame it. With the recent elimination of the Roselle Park First Aid Squad, how will you address that from happening to the fire department? A concern is that the diversity of the town is reflected in the police department and the county EMS, but not in the fire department. There are no females, no ethnic group except white males, with no viable or visible recruitment program. I'm concerned that the fire department will go the way of Roselle Park First Aid. So how will you address first aid from ceasing being a volunteer department?
Okay. I think it's a really interesting question. It's something that I hadn't put much thought to be frank with you. But I think there's two issues that are getting conflated a bit there, and I want to parse the two out. One is a performance-based issue, and one is a diversity issue. So from a performance perspective, I don't think there's many questions around the fire department's performance. I think we could do a better job of, funding them at adequate levels for certain things that they need, and I'm happy to go into detail in a rebuttal on that. I think close monitoring and close relationship with the fire chief, I think, make sure they're on top of their game. I'm happy to do that. But the simple fact of the matter is, from a diversity perspective, I think that's something incredibly interesting to think about, and it's something that we need to push for. I think diversity in all aspects is important, and I think we need to promote that in the fire department as well. I will say they are volunteers, so it's a volunteer by nature. That being said, could we do a better job as a town to reach out to folks, minorities and women to volunteer for the fire department? I think absolutely, and I think there's probably low-cost ways that we can do that on a volunteer basis. So, and I do have a pretty good relationship with the current fire chief, so I'll give him a ring about it.
Over the years, I know of 2 females that were on the fire department at one time. Okay, so there has been movement as far as gender goes. As mayor and council goes, we have never interviewed or we take the recommendations of the fire department that comes from the chief at the meetings. Okay, they have to apply to firefighter 1, firefighter 2, to become a fireman, and the fire department is solely responsible for the people who they bring on. Okay, we get the recommendations as council from the fire chief itself. Right now, we are very good with as far as the membership goes. I see that the problem between the first aid squad and the fire department was there was an issue as far as response time and answering calls with the FAS. Fire department, I have no qualms with as far as answering their calls, getting there, and they answer 100% of their calls. So I have, you know, they do it for volunteers, they do a great job, so forth and so on. And again, that'd be up to the fire department to change, you know, their employment rules, because we as council accept what we get from the fire chief.
Yes, I would like to also echo that the fire department does a fantastic job. There are definitely ways that you can reach out to different ethnicity groups, different cultural groups, different agendas to get more diversity on the fire department. And I would like to also expand it to all of our boards, committees, and commissions. As Saul alluded to, he is on a diversity committee, but I also am the diversity committee liaison. And one of the Sustainable Jersey actions we are doing right now is reviewing all of the boards, committees, and commissions. And I would now maybe consider also the fire department, looking at the diversity on those committees and how we can change them for whoever becomes mayor, and we can give those recommendations. When I was in the Marine Corps, went to Afghanistan, Japan, and the Philippines, and all three countries had different cultures and different people, and you had to understand their cultures in order to survive, in order to work together. And we have to make Roselle Park united, and one of the ways we can do that is by expanding the diversity on the fire department, as well as our boards, committees, and commissions.
Okay, each candidate now has a 1-minute rebuttal.
I think we all kind of said similar things. No, I would just say I'm proud of the Roselle Park Fire Department. I think they do a great job, and I think across the board we should embrace diversity, and I think it's really, really fantastic to hear somebody submit something like this, because in walking door to door, I hear a lot about taxes, the downtown, schools, and I think this is actually awesome to hear something like this from the town, something that I haven't heard before. And I think, you know, if I'm so lucky to be mayor, I think this is something that needs to be explored and is worth exploring. So, great user-submitted question is my rebuttal.
No, ma'am. Good.
No, I'm not. No.
We're running a little ahead, so we have one more question from the public portion. Deborah will ask it. Mr. Fahori will answer first.
Thank you, Jenny. So as we were reading questions, when I heard this one, I immediately yelled out, "Winner, winner, chicken dinner." And so to all of to our three candidates, again, knowing how I like things to be run, if you could please first answer straightforward with a yes or a no response, and then elaborate. So to all candidates, will you support and push a reasonable ordinance for a backyard chicken pilot program?
Knew that question was going to be asked.
I did not.
So,
Any
first-
any hint who wrote it?
so to answer your first part, yes. And this came up last year, right before the end of the year, and unfortunately, we ran out of time with the chicken situation. I guess a good way to end the questions. But no, on a serious note, the reason why we denied the ordinance last year is because the ordinance was incomplete. And if you're not going to get it done right the first time, then why bother doing it all? So I have no problem with if we have a well-crafted and very effective ordinance for chickens, then we can absolutely move forward with that, because one person might do it by the book and do it perfect, but it's for that person who comes next who may not be so perfect, and they might get complacent.
No, I'm only kidding. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's a no-brainer to me, especially if it's just a pilot. I think if folks can demonstrate that they have the ability to, manage such livestock, then absolutely no problem with that. And I might add, I think we're seeing an influx in Roselle Park of all my cool friends that moved over to Brooklyn. All of them are having babies and they're moving back to the suburbs. And I think we need to be open-minded to things, outside of the box, like having livestock in back, because, being prohibitive to some things like this is a no-no for folks that want to come and move into town. And I want to be open and free to anybody who wants to live in here. And, I want to be a destination place. And I think limiting personal freedoms within Roselle Park is prohibitive to that, and I want to be open to business and open to new residents. So
The answer to that question is 100% yes. The problem that we had as mayor and council is when this gentleman was asked to do this years ago, he was given the wrong information. And I'm sorry to say, it was the wrong information that he got. We sat down as council and we came up with an ordinance, okay? But the problem is, when we started to look at the ordinances, the setbacks, the frontage, the heights, so forth and so on, if we would have passed it that night, he wouldn't have been able to complete or have his chickens in his backyard, because the way the ordinance was written up, that basically you needed an engineer to come in and, X amount of footage for each chicken, so forth and so on. So, and the other thing that I didn't like, or I would change, is the fact that we did bring it up to the fact that if anybody wants to do this in the future, it has to go, not the mayor and council, it has to go to the municipal land use board. Municipal land use board, when that ordinance would come up, anybody within a 200-foot radius of that area would be notified. Because when you go and you talk to all the neighbors that were there, 15 of them supported them, but it was one neighbor that didn't. And that was the one neighbor that did the most squawking. So me personally, it goes to the municipal land use board, gobble, gobble, okay? It goes to the municipal land use board that you, the residents within that area, can make the decision, yes or no. Why should we have somebody that lives on Fayette Avenue or in an apartment complex in a far end of town telling the gentleman that you can't have it? So the ordinance needed to be redone. It needs to be worked. I totally agree with it, because, ladies and gentlemen, the way this world's going, in about a few more years, you're going to have to grow your own stuff. Thank you.
Each candidate has an additional minute for additional comments or rebuttals.
I just have one. Chickens don't gobble, turkeys do. But that's it.
I got another one. I think Carl lost a vote with whoever he was talking about.
No, I honestly feel that, and the problem with this also, with that ordinance, was the fee structure. You have to notify everybody within that 200 feet by registered mail. And that was the cost factor. That was close to about $800 to $900. I would love to see somebody else, where we all kick in the hat or go on those Fund Me Too phases, to do it.
No, not me too.
Because it's just something where, I'm telling you, if you went there and saw this operation, it was outstanding. It was done right. So.
Okay. That concludes part 3. Part 4 will be moderated by Kathy Lloyd from Tap Into Roselle Park. I neglected in the beginning to introduce our timekeeper, Jessamine Dukes, who's been doing an outstanding job the entire time.
Candidate Fahori, if you want to stretch out and come over here, just to spread out a little bit, or are you comfortable?
Doesn't matter.
You're
You're
good
the
there?
moderator.
Okay, if you're good there, it's fine with me.
I'll stretch it out.
Okay, if someone just wants to, want to give you a little more room since we have less people up here. In this section, each candidate will have 30 seconds to ask one question to the other two candidates. The other two candidates will then each have 2 minutes to respond. First person up will be candidate Hokinson, followed with the first response by candidate Fahori, followed by Mr. Signorello.
All right, so I read my
You
question?
go first. Yes, you can ask your question first.
Okay, the question that I have is based on the progress with the revaluation in town that has been started under my tenure as a full-time mayor and will continue into the next 4 years, such as the redevelopment, residential programs, holiday and cultural and borough events. How will you ensure that you will have the time as a part-time mayor to hold people accountable and safeguard the momentum so it will not be lost and then reverted back to a stagnant state? Keeping in mind your obligations with work and commitments with the many organizations you are now engaged in, and please be specific.
It's our candidate Fahori.
I'm good.
Okay.
You stole my question, by the way. So, the mayor, yes, it's a part-time title, but it is full-time work. How I do it on council is how I would bring it to being a mayor. This is the 21st century to where you do not have to be in an office 40 hours a week to do your job. I'm available to residents of the 3rd Ward 24/7. I would be available as mayor 24/7. Whether I have to take off work one day for a meeting, or I have to leave work early, or if I get a phone call at 1 a.m., I'm there. So, to answer Mayor Hokinson's question in more depth about redevelopment and all of the things that he's done, with example with the reevaluation, is as long as you put the proper professionals in place to run your borough departments, then you do not have to be at Borough Hall every day of the week, because you should be able to trust our clerk, our CFO, our construction department. So, and you're always one phone call away if something happens, and that is how I would be mayor.
Candidate Signorello.
I'd say you're making a big assumption that I wouldn't be a full-time mayor. You know, I've got a little money saved in the bank. I could probably do it full-time if I wanted to. The simple fact of the matter is, I started my own consulting firm last year. I make my hours as I see fit, and I bill my clients as such. I can ramp up my time and ramp it down as needed. And to be frank with you, I take issue with this question because I hear the terms like momentum, and I hear the terms like progress, and I gotta tell you, there's one big thing we've gotten done, 210 apartments on Westfield Avenue, and it took a while to get done. So if this is what momentum and progress looks from somebody working 40 hours a week, then I'll take my chances with me working 10, to be frank with you, because I don't call this momentum.
Okay, before we go to the next question, I just want to remind everybody that there is voter registration forms at the back of the room, not to forget if you need one, to pick one up. Now we're going to move to candidate Fahori for your question to the other two candidates.
Yes. So, 2 years ago, council attempted to weaken pay-to-play laws to allow contractors to contribute more money to politicians and political parties. What is your position on strengthening our town's pay-to-play laws and prohibiting developers from contributing to political parties and politicians?
Candidate Signorello.
I think we already have some of the most stringent rules in the state. I think they're adequate where they're at. To be frank with you, it's been an eye-opener actually running for office. And I said this in my interview. If you asked me this question a year ago, I would have 100% let's make them stronger. But I encourage any of you to try running for office. It's expensive, it's time consuming, and it's, it's something that you have to learn very quickly. Rules like ELEC and finance rules they're difficult to manage, and, I'm not saying that it's impossible, but we want to encourage a free and open democracy, and as part of that, we need to make it easy for folks to run. I actually, as much as I think it's interesting to have a three-way race, I think independents should be encouraged as well. And it's really difficult without a party to run. And the more we limit finance, the more we chokehold finance, the more we chokehold independent participation. So I'm against making rules much more stringent than they are. I think they're already pretty tough. And if you guys care about an open and fair democracy where, the people pick and anybody can get involved, we have to be careful about over-regulating how we run and what the finance rules are. We've got tough rules here in Roselle Park, and I think they're all right where they're at.
Thank you.
I was happy to be sitting on council when this was brought up over 4 years ago. We lowered, the state pay-to-play is $300. Roselle Park lowered it to $200, okay? I would have to say, as far as I'm concerned, it's fine, make it 100, and make it even stringenter. But for once, I'm gonna have to agree with you. One time tonight, I will have to agree with you. Because the way the pay-to-play ordinance reads is that I'm an independent. January 1st, I go out and hit up every business in Roselle Park. They give me $200. The Republican Party, the Democratic Party, they can't get a dime because they've already given out the max. So maybe you might want to sit back and change, say, look, $200 to the Republican Party, $200 to the Democratic Party, the Green Party, Communist Party, whoever wants to run, okay? This year, as far as the pay-to-play goes, I did receive 1 or 2 checks this year. When I went through my depositing from 1 or 2 developers, I gave it back, okay? I sent it back to them. I wrote a check out, Friends of Hokinson, and I sent it back. So the pay-to-play, as far as I'm concerned, can stay where it's at, but if the parties feel that, and I do agree with you because I'm on my own this year, it is a big responsibility to run a campaign. We all know it, thousands of dollars for signs, flyers, mailers. I've already invested $2,000 out of my pocket, so as far as I'm concerned, pay-to-play can stay the same.
Thank you. Candidate Signorilla, your turn to ask a question.
I have a really easy one for you guys. What do you both like best about me as a candidate?
Candidate Hokinson, you go first.
Best quality. There's got to be something there.
Glad you're first.
Joe, candidate Signorella, to be honest with you, I really, really think one of the biggest things that you have is your energy. Your energy. And I think personally, if things don't go well in November, that you stick around because you show a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm, but sometimes it's just, I would think a little bit more experience would help. But I know that listening to your interview, you said if things don't go well in November, where are you going to be? And you said maybe 2 years, Councilman at large. So I would say, I think you're on the right track, but I think a little bit more experience, or some. And I know you're in the financial field, but finance, it's 2 different things. So I think that I think you're on your way to a very successful career somewhere.
Candidate Fahori?
I would have to agree with Mayor Hokinson on this, definitely energy, and I would also agree that you have to, because you just moved back home from wherever you were in November, so you have to give yourself some time to reacclimatize yourself with New Jersey and with Roselle Park and understand what people want. Like, people don't want a town administrator, they want business development, so they get an economic development director. So that would be the short of it.
Can I just make can I make a rebuttal? I feel like it's appropriate to make a rebuttal here.
There's no
We didn't get
rebuttals.
rebuttal.
Oh,
There's-
come on.
there's no-
I want to say something nice.
You can save it for your closing statement.
Okay, fair enough.
We are going to end that part of it, and we're going to move to the candidates' closing statements. Candidate Signorelli, you are going to be going first, followed by candidate Flahori, followed by candidate Hokinson.
I'll start off by saying something nice as my rebuttal. I promised I was going to keep it super positive. Both candidates, you both care deeply about the town, and I really respect that. We do not always see eye to eye. We often don't see eye to eye, but I respect the heck out of the heart and soul you guys put into it, and it's been fantastic being on the dais with you guys tonight. So I want to thank you one more time. Now, we've been stalled for too long here in Roselle Park, and we've talked about some of the issues. I think as a town, we've gotten some raw deals. I think we've heard tonight that things haven't worked out, that people haven't wanted to share a service with us, but we haven't gotten X, Y, and Z because of reason X, Y, and Z. As Mr. Hokinson pointed out, I come from the private sector. My paycheck is based on my performance. When it doesn't get done, we try harder. When somebody doesn't want to share services, we ask why. We figure it out and we solve it. And I think that Roselle Park, when we think about the amount of tax money we're spending here, when we think about the gravity of some of the decisions we have to make coming up in the next 5 to 8 years, I think we could use a little private sector sensibility. I think I can bring that, and I think I can bring a whole bunch of energy to the town, and I thank you all for your consideration for Mayor of Roselle Park.
Candidate Flahori?
I would like to thank the organizers of this debate and the candidates for making this night possible. I'm positive that with the initiatives taken this year, Roselle Park will be a town that others want to emulate. We'll be a trendsetter and not a trend follower. Our borough has all the key elements: small town charm, accessibility to schools and public facilities, quaint neighborhoods, easy access to major thoroughfares like the Garden State Parkway, and easy access to mass transit to New York City and the tri-state area. These opportunities have made it possible for new families and residents to move to Roselle Park, and the potential for new businesses to invest in our town. But having the right leadership and team will be key to the immediate success of our future. It is clear by the great amount of responsibilities that the mayor is no part-time job, but a full-time effort. There are days where we have to leave work early, or take days off, or go to an emergency midnight meeting when you have to get up at 6 a.m. The mayor is the face of this community, the one who will need to be a unifier and not a divider. While there were many issues discussed tonight, instead of pointing fingers, we should be shaking hands because we are working towards common ground. That is true leadership, and that is what Roselle Park needs. That is what I will bring to our community if elected mayor. I give you my solemn guarantee that if elected mayor, I will not embarrass you, and I will work tirelessly and give 110% to make Roselle Park a better place. It will always be my honor to serve you, the residents of Roselle Park. Thank you for your consideration, and Semper Fidelis.
Hoorah.
Candidate Hokinson.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. I wish we could see this at every council meeting. A lot of things were said tonight. I'd like to thank the mediators, Sal. Boy, am I going to miss you. But, again, thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for listening, okay? Just remember one thing, folks. There's 3 sides to every story. There's your side, my side, and the right side. But, as a full-time mayor, I have always put you and me in the borough first, okay? I put the borough first, so forth and so on, with the fact that sometimes this is why I'm an independent voice. I don't have to affiliate myself with anybody. I've always put the borough first. During my tenure, the revaluation of Roselle Park, I need your help. Your help. I need council's help. We have to go forward. We are in the process of doing that. I need your help so that the next 4 years that we, not me, not you, we, us, can work together to continue the progress in Roselle Park. Let's continue the discussion. If you still have any questions, I am accessible. I have my office upstairs, I have my phone number, I am accessible, not quite 24 hours a day, but I am accessible. I am here every day. You need a thing, I will call, okay? If you have any need and clarification on anything that we have talked about tonight, please come to my meet and greet Tuesday night across the street at the Susso's Bakery, right across the street, where you can get more. When I talk, I might be pretty, but for the truth, it's easy because I speak from the heart. Did I get it?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
What a great night it's been. As the publisher for Tap Into Roselle Park News, it has been a real pleasure to work with Saul from Roselle Park News and to bring this debate to our community tonight. We would like to thank this great team of people who volunteered their time, worked very hard to put this whole debate together and make it as informative to the residents as possible. We would also like to thank each of the candidates for participating, answering some very tough questions tonight, and hopefully giving residents some insight to help you decide who to choose on Election Day. Lastly, we want to thank the community. Whether you are here in person or you'll be watching this later, we hope that you appreciate the professional and fair debate that we have presented here tonight, and we thank you for watching. Please be sure to set your calendars for October 25th at 7 p.m. when we host our next debate for the council candidates. And this concludes our debate. From all of us, we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.